talked a little bit about this on my live stream yesterday, dlive.tv/VincentJames. If you'd like to follow over there to get notified for when I am live, so you can catch the show live. Link in the description below. But we talked about the Lancaster protest, and we also talked about the 2 LA sheriff's deputies who were ambushed, shot in the head. Both shot in the head. We talked about how there were celebrations after the 2 police officers were shot in the head. And then, of course, protests after over a man who stabbed 4 people in the past, should have been in prison for life, of course, but was not, because of criminal justice reform or something like this. There were protests for him who attempted to stab a cop. They shot him dead, memorializing this guy. And then, of course, celebrating over the 2 LA sheriffs who were shot in the face in this ambush. So we're going to show you all of that today. Like I said, we covered this in my live stream. Before we get started, though, I just want to remind you, check out the links in the description below and go to either preparewithvincent.com or waterwithvincent.com. At preparewithvincent.com, you can get $100 off of a 4-week emergency dry food supply. This dry food supply has a 25-year shelf life. It has 284 servings, 2,000 calories a day, and 12 different food varieties. And I think that you can get this in the standard amount of time now. When you see this, they say that they're still experiencing delays, but it's a lot less. I think it's a couple of weeks now. I get a substantial portion of every order, so this is a great way to help out the channel. As most of you know, my YouTube channels have gone down, so the show completely relies on the super chatters during the live stream. And then, of course, Subscribestar and Patreon, where you can find all of the full-length live streams permanently available. And then, of course, My Patriot Supply and waterwithvincent.com. At waterwithvincent.com, you can get about $100 off of an Alexapure Pro water filtration system. Filters up to 5,000 gallons of water, removes 200-plus contaminants, including fluoride, viruses, bacteria, pesticides, and pharmaceuticals. So if you're thinking about stocking up on dry food supply, water filtration, things like this, make sure to check the links in the description below. Both links are there to give me credit, preparewithvincent.com and waterwithvincent.com. Let's first get to the protest that erupted in Lancaster. Violent protest erupt outside precinct in support of knifeman. Pennsylvania cop shot dead after he charged at officer with huge blade and had stabbed 4 people in the past. So this is the type of guy that they're propping up, right? It doesn't matter what these people do. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they raped a teenager like Jacob Blake. It doesn't matter if they tried to kill cops like this guy, or tried to shoot a cop in the head like the guy in Detroit, or tried to shoot at cops like the guy in Chicago. They're always going to find a way to, they're always going to find a reason to protest, to riot, as long as the guy looks like them, right? As long as the guy looks like them. And especially if there's an excuse to riot and loot stores and get free shit. I mean, that's really what this is about for a lot of these people. And I prove this to you by just going to the redelephants.com. You can easily just go to the redelephants.com. And we can go back to a recent protest. We can go to the Walmart article from 2018. We look at the Chicago students who used the walkout protest, which was supposed to be about gun violence, to go and loot a Walmart. They looted this Walmart. They rampaged through this Walmart, looted this Walmart, and even shot guns in the parking lot, according to Walmart employees. So they used an anti-gun protest to go and loot a Walmart and then shoot guns in the parking lot, right? They got a whole bunch of free shit from Walmart. So this is one of the examples that I go to when I try to prove people this. But this guy, he was awaiting trial for stabbing and seriously injuring 4 people. Should have been in prison for life. He charged at an officer while brandishing a huge knife over his head, was trying to kill the police officer. And this is what these violent protests are over in Lancaster. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And this is why I say that the criminal history matters, right? The criminal history definitely matters with a lot of these people, because you have to look at the reaction. Does the reaction match who this guy was? And in every single instance, it does not. With George Floyd, what was the reaction to him? A gold-plated casket, a horse-drawn carriage funeral procession, $15 million to the family, riots like we've never seen in history before that caused billions of dollars in damage, many people dead, 50 people murdered since George Floyd in these riots, police officers shot in the head, paralyzed from the neck down. Does this reaction match a guy who, up until his death, was addicted to meth and fentanyl, had fentanyl in the system, which, like I said, the reason why these cops are probably going to get off is it was because he probably died from the fentanyl overdose. He probably, and the police were trained to kneel in that way, right, in the manual. They followed the book, exactly how he was resisting arrest the entire time. That wasn't the narrative in the beginning. We don't have to rehash the whole George Floyd thing here, but does the reaction match the person? Look at what happened in Detroit. The reaction there with the guy who point blank tried to shoot a police officer in the head. Look at the guy in Chicago. They looted a Magnificent Mile. And then when it came out that this guy was not a kid and was an adult and was shooting at the police, they said, well, this looting is our form of reparations. That's what the Black Lives Matter leader said in Chicago. The leader of Black Lives Matter in Chicago. I hear a lot of people saying, well, this isn't Black Lives Matter causing this. It's not the real Black Lives Matter group. Yeah, it is. They chant Black Lives Matter. They have Black Lives Matter shirts, and a lot of these people are led by Black Lives Matter leaders calling to completely abolish the police in these black areas, which would only lead to more black death. Obviously, we know who commits the highest rate of homicide in the country, 10 times higher than any other group of people. It's black Americans. Right? And in every country they reside, too. In the UK, higher crime rate there. In Brazil, highest crime rate there. In Europe, highest crime rate there. And it's just so crazy to me because when you control for this crime and these police encounters, the Black Lives Matter narrative is wiped away completely by the science that they say that they support. Anyway, moving on. I want to move on to the, they're propping up this guy who tried to kill police. I want to move on to the LA sheriff's deputies who were ambushed and shot without warning or provocation. We have this article here. And it shows the video. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video. 2 Los Angeles Sheriff Department's deputies were ambushed and shot as they sat in their patrol car in Compton on Saturday evening. They were rushed to the hospital. So far, from what we know, they're in stable condition right now. But the deputies have been targeted by Black Lives Matter protests since George Floyd, as well as described anarchist and Antifa supporters since the shooting death in L.A., since the shooting death of Dijon Kazee, the mustard man. Kazee allegedly fought with police and tried to pull him over for a bicycle infraction. He allegedly had a gun at the time of his confrontation, which he did. Donald Trump calls the guy who shot the police an animal, which is true. They're going after him for calling him an animal, just like with the MS-13 thing. But, he just walks up and shoots the police and then runs away. From what I understand, he's still at large. But people were blocking the emergency room entrance. Here's this from the LA County Sheriff's Twitter handle. To the protesters blocking the entrance and exit of the hospital emergency room, yelling, "We hope they die," referring to 2 LA sheriffs ambushed today in Compton. Do not block emergency entries and exits to the hospitals. People's lives are at stake. We have this clip here of these people blocking this entrance. It's a small group of people who breach St. Francis Hospital, where officers were being treated, who say, "We wish they die." I played this on stream. I don't have to play this whole clip here, but I'll play a little bit of it.
We hope that bitch stops. Yeah, it's gonna be more. You need to get ready, motherfucker. Keep killing, y'all gonna die too. Yeah, you think that you can murder motherfucking black people? Fuck the police. Fuck y'all. Fuck y'all. Fuck
Come on, bitch, say something now. Say something now.
And you can go watch it for yourself. I have that up on my Telegram channel, t.me/RealVincentJames, I think it is. Link in the description below. But, and a lot of people are saying, well, should we shed a tear for these 2 cops? Oh, look what happened to George Floyd and Michael Brown and all the rest of these people. I mean, we look at this case by case by case by case. Hands up, don't shoot never happened with Michael Brown. Black witnesses admitted this after they initially lied because the victim, right, shared their skin color. They got caught in their lie, and they eventually said, well, hands up, don't shoot never happened. And actually, he charged at the police and tried to take his gun away. In every instance, there are lies being told. The whole Black Lives Matter narrative in general, there are lies being told. The media is not giving you the full context on this. But a lot of people are saying, well, should we shed a tear? Look what happened to this guy. Look what happened to that guy. It's because the black reaction to all of these sensationalized stories is one of emotion. And a lot of this is in large part due to these people being raised by their mothers, honestly, and that's what it comes down to. And then, of course, the lack of ability to process information and come to a sensible conclusion. And this is true for a lot of Americans. Now, there were some people that were celebrating, as soon as this happened, celebrating these 2 police officers being shot here. We're going to play this clip here.
Compton.
Warning language.
Nigga just aired the police out, nigga. They just aired the police out, nigga. It go up in Compton. Them niggas just got aired out, cuz. Nigga, they just got aired out. Somebody ran up on the car and bust on their ass, right?
So you can tell, there's a complete lack of very tiny vocabulary there with that particular person. But what we're seeing happen is people are taking to the streets and taking out police or taking out white people in general. We've seen many different hate crimes, anti-white hate crimes that have happened. That one guy who went to the AutoZone, he said he was looking for a white person to stab and kill. He stabbed a white guy. He miraculously survived this attack. Then he got put in prison with a white cellmate, and then he killed the white cellmate. And now the family's suing the jailers there, the police there, because they should have known that he had this anti-white bias and he was trying to kill white people. He eventually killed his white cellmate. Why was he put with a white cellmate? Well, it's because the media didn't cover that hate crime because they don't want you to know that black Americans commit hate crimes at 3 times the rate as white Americans do, according to the FBI statistics. Right? There are undeniable facts out there that the media doesn't want you to know with this Black Lives Matter narrative in general entirely. And this is what we're seeing right now. Right? What did we see in 2015? Well, black nationalist groups went around and kill cops because the media wouldn't tell you the fucking truth. So the blood is completely on the hands of the media. They're the real radicalizers here. Not the guy sitting in his garage doing a YouTube video. Well, now I'm banned from YouTube because they called me a radicalizer and all these other names that aren't true. But they call us the radicalizers while they're causing people to go out there and murder and assassinate police officers like this black nationalist who shot 5 police in Dallas. And at the memorial of the police officers who were shot by this black nationalist over a bullshit narrative, Barack Obama had the goal to get on stage and basically blame the police at the memorial of these 5 dead police officers. Take a listen.
And while some suffer far more under racism's burden, some feel to a far greater extent discrimination's sting. Although most of us do our best to guard against it and teach our children better, none of us is entirely innocent. No institution is entirely immune. And that includes our police departments. We know this. And so when African Americans from all walks of life, from different communities across the country, voice a growing despair over what they perceive to be unequal treatment.
But once again, he's not going to tell you that it's not unequal treatment. He's not going to tell you that hundreds more whites are killed by police on a yearly basis. Hundreds more, every single year. And sure, you can have the population argument, but in order to get into the population argument or discussion about population representation at all, you're also going to have to acknowledge that there is a crime difference and police encounter difference. And when you control for that benchmark, which is the only benchmark that you should control for, which is crime and population, together, you'll find that we're back at the same starting point, that white Americans are more likely to be shot and killed by police. That all of this racial bias completely disappears when you control for crime. Racial bias in police shootings and racial bias in police use of force. Barack Obama's not going to tell you that. CNN's not going to tell you that. MSNBC's not going to tell you that. New York Times isn't going to tell you that. Washington Post isn't going to tell you that. Because they know that a big portion of the population, especially the black population, are going to have an emotional reaction, not one of science, not one of reason, not one of logic. They're going to have this emotional reaction and burn the fucking city down because the guy looks like them. Not for the 8,000 blacks that are killed by other blacks every single year, which, by the way, is more than the KKK has killed in their entire history. Not for the 8,000 other blacks that are killed by other blacks every single year that mostly go unsolved. Levels of crime that we don't see in the poorest white communities in the country. Where it's true that studies show that middle-income black cities have a much higher crime rate than the poorest white cities, the poorest white counties, and the poorest white districts in the country, and even high-income black neighborhoods as well. They're not going to tell you these things. They're not going to point this out because they want to fuel the fire. They want to radicalize individuals to go out there and shoot 2 police officers in L.A. They want to radicalize individuals, black nationalists, to go out there and shoot 5 police officers in Dallas or shoot 2 police officers in Baton Rouge. They're not going to tell you that black nationalists pose a bigger threat of violence to the United States of America than any other group of people aside from Islamists. They'll say that white supremacists are the biggest threat when this is not true. They won't adjust for population there now, will they? And this is how they lie. Once again, make sure the show completely relies on you. Me continuing completely relies on you. Bread and butter, of course, is the super chatters and the live stream on dlive.tv/VincentJames. Then, of course, Subscribestar and Patreon. If you want to get access to all the full-length live streams and exclusive content, Subscribestar and Patreon for $5 a month. Much better investment than Netflix, I would say. For $5 a month, and you'll get access to all that exclusive content and full-length live streams, and you help the channel continue, right? You help the show grow. You help the show continue. I continue on. And then, of course, My Patriot Supply, preparewithvincent.com and waterwithvincent.com. All the links are in the description below. But we ought to give thanks to God for you always, brothers, loved by the Lord, because God chose you as the first fruits for salvation through the sanctification by the Spirit and the belief in truth. To this end he has also called you through our gospel to possess the glory of our Lord Jesus Christ. My goal is to eventually become a powerhouse of truth. That is why it is imperative that you check the links in the description below and go to either Patreon and Subscribestar and support us for at least the cost of a cup of coffee a month. We already have writers writing for theredelephants.com, but we'd like to bring on more in the near future. By the way, at theredelephants.com, you can also find t-shirts, hats, and other products. Check the links in the description below. It helps us out tremendously.